Josh and I were just talking about cars before we started recording. And unlike a lot of our listeners, Josh and I are not really car guys. I mean, I don't want to speak too much for Josh, but I can like change a battery. If I had to, I could change the oil. Nowadays with YouTube, you can do a lot more. So I've replaced a few parts on my vehicles, nothing major. I'll watch a YouTube video and like fumble through it. And then it's always like IKEA. There's always something left over. I didn't put it together the right way, but the car still runs. And we're just kind of venting that German automobiles, we both, I've owned two German automobiles, a BMW and a Mercedes. And I don't think, even though I had really good luck with the BMW, it's just a sedan I drove over in Europe, bought it new. It ran pretty well, but this Mercedes is okay. It's just okay. But when you pop the hood on that thing, it's so engineered. It's like everything goes together. Like you take it into a Mercedes dealership and brother, just to get a tune up, it's going to set you back a little bit, So we were talking, and I think Japanese cars are the way to go. Personally, I'm not. I guess the Ford F makes a good makes a good truck with the F-150, but I like Jeeps, but they're notorious for breaking down over 100,000 miles. But I mean, you're a Toyota guy, kind of, aren't you, Josh?
Yeah, so my 4Runner is the first Toyota I've ever owned, and man, I have no complaints. I just follow the services in the owner's manual. When it hits that mileage mark, take it in, get the services done. I've got so mine's a 2020. I bought it brand new, drove it off the lot, which I told myself before then I would never drive another brand new car off the lot, and then I did exactly that. It's got like 75,000 miles on it now, and dude, knock on wood, no issues. Love it. It's
Yeah,
been
dude.
it's been solid. My brother-in-law has a 2000, I think it's a 2003 Toyota 4Runner. He's got the premium. He's closing in on 500,000 miles on his.
Has he had to do anything to it?
Other than, the occasional, replace a starter, replace an alternator, here and there, just, normal stuff like that. No, he's, but he is, he's been very meticulous about making sure that the services are done, right? Keep those services done.
So with everything is knock on wood, right? Knock on wood.
Yeah.
But I've owned two Tundras, and the first Tundra I got that back when the market crashed. It market crashed in early 2008, and man, they were just giving cars away. I got it for a really good price back in Maryland, and the only major issue with that, we put about almost 200,000 on it before we sold it, quote unquote, to Robert. Shout out to Robert, who's a listener. We only had to replace the fuel pump. The fuel pump just died one day, so we had to replace that. That was, it was not super costly, but it was up there. It's $1,200 or so. But then sold it to Robert, gave him a really good price, and like as soon as we sold it, like the starter went out. Like a week later, it's like, hey man, buyer beware. Sorry. But
Nope.
yeah, and then the one we have now is closed in on 180, and so far so good. And yeah, if I was going to buy a new car, definitely Toyota for sure. Until I get rich, I might have won the lottery, and then all bets are off, man.
Right. That's when you're going to buy your Bugatti.
No. Yeah, what's your dream car? Like, if money was no option, price is no option. What are you gonna get?
I'm probably going to take a hard look and probably get something Austin Martin, like a vintage Austin Martin. I think those cars. One, I watched a lot of Bond movies when I was a kid, but there's just something. It's got it's got some get up and go in it, but at the same time, it just looks sleek and sophisticated. I really like the way they look, and I like the story and everything. So yeah, it'd probably be a super, a high end Austin Martin. All of them are high end, but it would be high end even for even for that. I think they're fantastic cars.
I would, I would be debating between three, and I'd probably go with, I don't know. So first, I guess, I don't know. I would probably keep my Jeep and just spend all the money I would spend, I don't know, $130,000 just dropping a Corvette engine or a 454 or like some big ass diesel engine in there, getting it all tricked out. You
Yes.
can drop some serious money on that. What I want to do to the Jeep would cost about $40,000. So there, you drop a Hemi in there, get the new transmission, all that. But if that's not an option, like just a big giant ass Ford or a Ford F-750,
Oh,
those or probably realistically, because if money's not an option, I get the Jeep fixed up anyway. But Eleanor, I would want Eleanor, man, from Gone
oh,
in 60 Seconds, the
yeah,
67 Mustang Shelby GT 500. Oh, dude, man, that would be the bomb right there. I don't think there's very
yeah.
many of those out there.
Not, not numbers matching.
Only
Um,
3 are believed to be in circulation.
I was about to say
That's
when
going to
you
be
start
more than
talking,
your Aston Martin.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
One of them is probably sitting in Jay Leno's garage. Um, he's a big car guy. Um, yeah, I would keep my Forerunner, but it would definitely be I would turn that thing into an overland vehicle, um, for when the for when the apocalypse happens. Um, I just you know the whole German car thing. I wanted an Audi, like I was telling you, back in the day, because I think Audis are, especially when you start talking like the A7s and stuff like that. Dude, I think those things look slick. They're, I've ridden in a couple of them, driven a couple, and man, they are great cars. Um, but then you start talking to people about the maintenance on those German cars, and like you said, and you start going in and start having to get services done on them and having to get them repaired and stuff. One, finding a place to do it. All right, you can take it. You can take it to the Mercedes dealer or the BMW dealer, but everybody knows it's always more expensive to go to the dealer to get it fixed. But at the same time, if you're not going to take it to the dealer, you got to find somebody that can actually work on those things. And I'm not taking, I'm not going to take an Audi or a Mercedes to, you know, to to Cooter's garage and let Bubba work on it, under the shade tree. Like that's not gonna that's not gonna happen. So you're gonna spend some coin on it. Come to think of it, Roger's wife drives an Audi.
that's right.
Because Roger's rich. And just so everybody listening, we're gonna talk trash about Roger because he's not with us tonight. He's off gallivanting around northern Alabama. Um, so yeah, so Roger's rich, so it doesn't matter to him. He drinks out of his $300 coffee cup in the waiting room while they're repairing his German vehicles. Wait, is Audi's German?
Yes, it's German.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, I'm
Eleanor,
with
man,
you.
great choice.
I've actually never driven an Audi, but I've heard only good things, and I like getting in a car that has more to offer than what I have to give. Right? I mean,
Nope.
you and I and a few other our listeners have been to a few of these driving courses, like where you learn how a vehicle performs. You learn how to corner. You learn how to come out of a turn. Things like that. You learn, very basics, but more than the average person out there. For instance, the first thing they tell you, one of the first things they told me in some of these courses was get your seatbelt as tight as possible. Do you
Nope.
know why? And it's like, oh, because if there's a wreck, and they're like, no, because you can feel the car. The tighter you are into the seat, and they're like, those NASCAR drivers, they have the harness and everything. It's not
Yeah.
just to keep them safe, so they can feel what the car is doing. So I've driven a few cars that had more than what I had to give. I drove an Infinity one time. I was like, wow, okay, this car exceeds my skill level. And then of course Tesla. I mean,
Yeah.
I just didn't. I mean, it exceeded my skill level, and I'm pretty sure I've always heard that Audis are high performance. I think in Ronin, didn't he say, I want a car that is fast but doesn't look fast, and he got a
Yep.
bunch of Audis.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was. But yeah, I'm with you. But man, those Germans, they just over engineer everything. It's a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
And you can't, and this goes for, and so this goes for any car these days, so when we lived in Virginia, I had a little Jeep Wrangler 2-door manual transmission, but I paid like $3,000 cash for it. And that was my, run to work and back car. And so, but like if anything went wrong with that, not that I can do a lot, right? I can do, if I need to change a starter, like I can figure that out. If I need to change an alternator, like I can figure that piece out. Anything other, I can change spark plugs, stuff like that. Anything other than that, like I'm not taking headers off, do anything like that, anything crazy. But like I could stand in the engine bay of that Jeep. Like I could crawl inside and stand up in the inside of it and walk around that little, the little four banger that was in there, no problem. You can't do that with cars these days. You open up the hood and there's no space to do anything, in these things. And especially when you start talking about German cars, like you open up the hood and it's almost all encased, completely encased in an enclosure. It's like you got to have a mechanic just to get in there, just to get at the part you need to get to deal with. It's way over engineered these days, and everything's all electrical now. It's almost to the point to where you can't do your own stuff at home anymore, by and large. Uh,
Yeah, everybody, you remember the Pontiac Fiero?
yeah,
You remember that car? One of the worst cars ever made, they said.
Pontiacs are
And
terrible.
well, this Fiero, one of the reasons it was so bad, they said, was because it was all modular, right? Everything fit together, like clicked together. You know, that's how
Yeah,
modern cars are now. Like you talk about, open up the engine block. It's all modular in there. You got to take this cover off to get to that. And if you look real close on some cars, some of the cheaper cars, like some of the like the not the grill, but the I don't even call it the grill anymore because it's all just decorative. It all just snaps into place.
yeah.
A lot of it's plastic. That's what the Fiero was. It was such a crappy car, and they were like, well, maybe Fiero was onto something there with that modular design. Man,
Before their time.
Fiero, worst car I've ever seen was a RX-7, Mazda RX-7.
Yeah,
Horrible car. Horrible.
yeah.
Man. But dude, speaking of cars, I think that there's probably going to be some auctions coming up for some pretty high-end automobiles with all this P. Diddy stuff going on.
Bro. So there's gonna be some auctions for some high end, for some homes, for everything. And I hear there's gonna be about 1,000, bottles of baby oil, rocks as well. So this is wild, right? I don't know if you want to lead into it. You want me to do
Go
it?
ahead.
So I had no clue about any of this stuff. I had seen something, I guess, a couple months ago that, like, Diddy was under investigation for, like a eyes wide shut sex party or something like that. And I'm like, but okay, whatever, weird. But I didn't pay any attention to it because by and large, I don't care, about celebrities for the most part. And then, like the other day, the wife and I were talking, and she was like, do you see what's going on?" And it's like, Diddy's been arrested. Like he's in the same prison that Jeffrey Epstein was in New York. He's on suicide watch. I was like, what in the world? And then, like, so I was, man, I went down that rabbit hole, and holy cow, like Kim, I forget her last name, Kim Post, Kim something, but it was basically like Diddy's on again, off again wife. She wrote a book and it just got released on Amazon like 2 days ago, but she's dead. And her last text message to, I think, one of her friends or one of her relatives was, "He got me." And then she died of pneumonia like a day later, 2 days later, right? So she's all of a sudden she gets mysteriously, and they said she was not sick before, but she said the text, "He got me." And so, the implication there is that, Diddy Schwachter,
Hmm.
somehow. But apparently, like he was having, at all his, because he was always famous for the white parties where everybody's dressed in white, everything, and so apparently, like he would turn off the air conditioning, it would make it really hot, and all these bottles of baby oil have apparently been laced with some type of drug. That's why all the baby oil was seized. Because I was like, why did the FBI seize 1,000 bottles of baby oil from his house? Like that's weird, right? And then my wife told me tonight, she was like, oh, because they're all drugged. All of those bottles were laced with something. But apparently he had all these rooms wired up, with video cameras, and so he would basically have all this compromise on all these very famous people who attended his parties and then you know engaged in adult activities afterwards. But even him, so now there's talk coming out like he had custody of Usher when Usher was a teenager. Like he had custody of Usher for a certain time when Usher was a teenager, and then Usher introduced him to Justin Bieber, and Justin Bieber hung out with Diddy for a while, and then Justin Bieber just came out with a song here within I don't know how long ago, but it was talking about like something about at a Diddy party, you know, I was in it for the Ferrari, or I was in it for the music, but I had to sell my soul stuff, and the implication is that Diddy made him do things with him, and videoed it, and it was like, now I got you. So it's very Jeffrey Epsteinish, right? With all these famous people. Apparently, J Lo is like deep in it, and they're saying that two of Diddy's houses on Star Island in Miami. And for those not familiar, Star Island in Miami it's a gated community, right? But that's where Shaq and all the Miami Heat players, Dolphins, right? That's where all these celebrities live. Um, it was right. Two of them were right across from the port of Miami, where where Star Island sits anyway. But again, now they're because one of the charges I think is human trafficking. They're saying that they possibly involved in human trafficking. So I was like, holy cow! But dude, everybody is being named now. So it's like Jay-Z, Usher basically deleted his Twitter account, his Instagram account. Now the stuff's coming out. Yeah, Jay-Z, Oprah. Apparently, Oprah was involved in you know bringing girls and stuff to Diddy. Yeah, man, it's on one hand I'm like I don't care about it, but on the other hand I'm like name everybody. Like I want to know more. Like I want like name everybody. Like release videos, release all the stuff you got because this goes way deeper. And the other thing, one more, and I'll throw it back over to you. So, the Playboy Mansion. They found that there are tunnels leading from the Playboy Mansion to various houses there around Calabasas, what they call it, wherever it is. So one went to James Caan's house, right? And so I guess it was for like people who didn't want to, be seen going into the Playboy Mansion. There's like, we'll just have a tunnel and I can go when I want. But apparently Diddy bought one of those houses, and afterwards, girls at the Playboy Mansion started talking about being drugged, and stuff. So, wow, man.
Yeah,
Really
so it's
wild.
like a mix between Bill Cosby and Jeffrey Epstein and who the hell ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny to me that you got P Diddy and Jay-Z and all these folks. They rapped about pimping and sex party. They rapped about it. What I mean, well, I think a lot of these rappers probably just with the gangster rap and stuff. Yeah, maybe they don't do it, but he rapped about it for so long. I mean, is this really a surprise? Probably took it a little bit too far with the compromise. They'll like compromising information, blackmail, things like that. But not really surprising to me at all. We'll see. I think this is going to be. I don't know if he's going to be Epstein or not. Maybe. If he is, well, then we'll know for sure. Well, there are a lot of powerful people, but yeah, I don't know. If Eric Adams ends up going to prison, they'll be the it'll be Eric Adams, P Diddy, and there's somebody else that's in there right now. Who is it? And maybe Trump will get thrown in that prison too, and it's just be a big party in there. So
Yeah.
who is that? It's I know Epstein was in that same prison, but I think there's someone else in there now, and I can't remember who it is. But I'll tell you, you're talking about Justin Bieber. I saw, of course, you've been off Twitter for the past month, so let me catch you up. Twitter, X, whatever. There's a few videos going around out there, legit videos of Bieber and Diddy and all this stuff. And man, Justin Bieber looks so uncomfortable around him. Like it's cringy uncomfortable. And Bieber, whose career is kind of, I mean, I don't know, I don't follow it too much, but he definitely is not as big as he was 4 or 5 years ago, for sure.
No.
It's like he could turn into, this could be the Me Too movement, the next Me Too movement, of sniffing out the corrupt celebrities, whatnot. I don't
Yeah.
know. The bad part about it is there's a song called Victory, and then Victory 2004. And those two were go-to workout songs for me. They're Puff Daddy songs. The first one came out, I believe, in 97, 98. And the second one, the remake came out in 2004, and 50 Cent was on it. Who, by the way, 50 Cent's got it out for P. Diddy, too. He's coming out with a Netflix thing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, now I can't listen to those anymore, man. I can't. I'm willing to ignore, Josh. I know you probably want to go in a different direction. I'm willing to ignore a lot, okay, for entertainment. Like Leonardo DiCaprio is a freak. He's a weirdo, but I like a lot of his movies, man.
He's a good actor.
Yeah, he's a good actor. You can go down the list, right? Ben Affleck, he's one. I think he's a garbage human being, but I actually I used to hate him, but I actually respect him as an actor now. Matt Damon's another one, but and I'm willing to forgive. Sam Elliott broke my heart today. I saw that he endorsed Kamala Harris, but I can overlook that. But when it's so creepy, where it's P. Diddy with these, freak off, drugs in the baby oil parties, I'm like, ew, I don't want to listen to that music anymore. I can't. It doesn't motivate me, But I'll tell you, I know I'm going I'm giving you a lot of stuff to go with here. But the one thing, it wasn't really a surprise when the IRS union endorsed Kamala Harris, and they're putting it out on X and they're bragging about it. It's like, dude, the IRS has a lower approval rating than hanging hemorrhoids, okay? And they just endorsed you. That just don't. What did Trump pay them to endorse her? But what bothers me was today, I'm just like, freaking really? Was Stanley McChrystal endorsed Kamala Harris today? And I've had my problems with Stan. I admired Stanley McChrystal a lot back in the GWAT days. He said and did some stuff that I took issue with over the years, but I was just like, man, why? Why did you endorse her? Like, what do you see in her? Maybe you don't see anything in Trump. Well, why don't you just leave your mouth shut then and not endorse anyone? But what does Stanley McChrystal see in Kamala Harris? Josh, I'm not even asking what does he see in her over Trump. I'm asking what does he see in her that's worth an endorsement?
I have no idea. Put a pin in that real quick. The last thing I'll say on the whole, the whole Diddy thing. You remember a couple of years ago, it was during, you brought up the Me Too, and it was during the Me Too movement, with, Rose McGowan was leading that. And you remember Corey Haim came out, and Corey Haim came out and was like, that's not even the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah,
in
he said
Hollywood.
some crazy stuff, man.
Yeah, dude, he came out, he made some allegations, and everybody's like, oh, that's just crazy, Corey. Oh, Corey's a kidder, right? Corey was abused as a kid, and Corey needs therapy, right? Corey needs to go to the padded room and just be quiet. All this stuff coming out, now you're really looking at it, you're like, Corey was right. What else, what else is out there that we don't know about? And so this is where when you have these Q conspiracy theories that come up, like kids are being sold in the basement of a pizza parlor in DC, and everybody's like, oh, that's crazy, that can never happen, and you're like, is it? Is it really? Is it that far off? When you think about everything else that was a conspiracy theory that's come out to be true, it's like, hey man, and the people who protested against that, it's like, man, you protested really, really loud about that, really long. What do they say? Doth who protests, the loudest.
Yeah.
Um, so
Methinks the lady doth protest too much.
yeah.
Yeah.
So on the McChrystal thing, so when I saw so either you or Roger dropped that in the group chat, I was like, come on, him and Sam Elliott. But yeah, dude, McChrystal came out and was like, you know, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but Kamala has the strength and the temperament to be commander in chief. And you're just like, I'm sorry, what? She has the what to be commander in chief? And like you, I like Stan McChrystal during the GWAT days. I mean, him and Vince Flynn, him and Mike Flynn. I think of the author.
Yeah.
First one that came to mind. Him and Mike Flynn, dude. I mean, they perfected the art of manhunting, right? They set the conditions to perfect that art. Manhunting, and to have him, then turn around the whole Rolling Stone article that got him fired by Obama, and then for him to come out and be like, yeah, Harris, so that's who I'm attaching my wagon to. It's really like, I just, he said her strength and temperament, right? Make her, okay, man, a chief. And it's like, are you high? I Here's my thing on retired general officers. Just keep your mouth shut. Just keep your mouth shut. Even if you would have come out and been like, Donald Trump's my guy, it would have been the same thing, man. It's like, you know what? McChrystal, not necessarily so much, but a lot of the other general officers over the last 20 years, they lost two major wars, which resulted in tens of thousands wounded, maimed for life, thousands killed, right? And I'm just talking about service members, all the while writing books on leadership. You guys should probably just shut up, go away, and hope that one day history forgets your record from 2001 to 2021. That goes for every general officer out there. You should probably just shut up and go away and just be quiet. Fade into obscurity where you belong. Because nobody needs or wants your opinion. So that's kind of how I look at it.
I'm with you 100%. It's speaking of
Sam
that,
Elliott, come on.
I guess we shouldn't be surprised. I don't know. Again, it's us or me living in my little echo chamber. I'm just not seeing it. Maybe Stanley McChrystal has sat down with Kamala and maybe she's just a completely different person behind closed doors. I don't know. But I'm not going to give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. I know what I see. I know what her record is. It's got to be he's angling for some job or he's got some job with some, lobbying, firm who's this or that. I don't know. But that's just disappointing. And the 741 retired senior officers and intelligence professionals that endorsed her, it's like, man, I'm with you. It's
Again,
like everything, especially lately, everything has been there. There are pockets of operational achievement. Obviously, we've seen those firsthand, pockets of operational achievement, but strategically, we've been a mess for a very long time, and especially recently. It's like, oh, you're going to brag the fact that you were in Secret Service or you have anything to do with the FBI, Department of Justice, CIA, anything. It's like right now is not a great time to be, proud of your job in the federal government,
Yep. I wonder how many of those 751 intelligence officials and senior, defense officials, I wonder how many of them sat in a briefing at any point in their career, especially toward the late 2010s, and said, no, the Taliban are not going to take over Afghanistan if we withdraw. There's no way. Or they sat in there and was like, ISIS is the JV team. ISIS is not. Don't worry about them. They're nobody. They're nothing. I wonder how many of those intelligence officials sat in there and did and said that very thing. 50 of those intelligence officials are the same 50 who said that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian misinformation. That turned out to be a lie, right? And these are our senior intelligence officials. I mean, you're talking, and they're not like, hey, I was the commander of the, the 500th in my brigade. It's like they were director of the NSA, director of the CIA, right? They were the Dernza, and for them to come out, they were so wrong because they allowed their political views to skew their opinion.
Oof.
And it's so those 751 intelligence officials, they whatever, again, like you said, we have been wrong, so very wrong on so much, especially in the last 20, 30 years when it comes to this stuff. We operational, operational wins, absolutely. Strategic wins, not not really. I mean, you know, strategic win, we destroyed ISIS, the physical caliphate anyway. But
Yeah,
that's not a in the grand scheme of things. Had we not done some of the things prior, they wouldn't even existed.
exactly. That's what I was
You
going to
know,
say. I would say strategic failures brought us to that, having to smash them into pieces, which I would say strategically, I mean, they hadn't gotten to a point yet. If they would have gotten to those fields over in Kirkuk, okay, now we're talking. That's where they were going, So, yeah, but I would say that, open up this can of worms a little bit, truly thinking, it's like, what has been a strategic win in the past 20 years, 23 years, 24? I mean, the Abraham Accords, you're getting there. You're getting there. I mean, those weren't seen through all the way to the end, but that was a strategic step in the right direction.
yep,
Getting Saudi Arabia, getting an Arab alliance, pretty much, because it wasn't just about let's make Israel friendly. It was about all the a lot of powerful Arab states signing on to the same piece of paper, which is a
yep,
move against Iran, is what that is.
yeah, hundred
And
percent.
I think that was a step in the right direction. Other than that, I mean, I really can't think of anything. I think and this was before 20 years, I don't know. I guess we're talking like 30 or 40 years at this point. 30 years is getting Colombia to be such a close strategic ally in the region. And that all kind of began with Pablo Escobar stuff, but
Yep.
people don't realize how close of an ally Colombia really is. I think that Colombia likes to keep that under wraps, because it is South America and there's a lot of deep seated anger against the Yankees down there for some, and justifiably so. I mean, some of the stuff that we did, we being the United States, and oh shit, what was the name of the fruit company? Ugh, you not the bananas. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, yeah.
What was it? Oh, damn it. It wasn't Chiquita Banana, I'll tell you that. But there were some like fruit wars that went on down there, and they really mistreated some of those countries in Central and South America in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Like, really some brutal stuff that was kind of underwritten by the U.S. government. Did you find the name?
United Fruit Company.
United Fruit. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
some crazy stuff. So yeah, I think that, getting Colombia to be such a tight partner, I don't know when exactly. I'd have to really dig into history here, Josh. Um, maybe when Jordan really turned the corner and became a super strong partner. And I guess maybe you could say Djibouti as well. Maybe Kenya. I mean, Ethiopia. I don't know. I mean, we've forged some pretty strong alliances over the years, but do you know when Jordan really turned that corner? Because Jordan, this is something that the kingdom really doesn't want to get out, is that our partnership with Jordan is almost as strong as the one with Israel.
I want to say the late '80s.
Late
Uh,
80s.
yeah, that would be that would be my guess. Would be really the late '80s, and the thing that made the you know late '80s, early '90s, the thing that made the Abraham Accords so good was that for years and years, I mean, for decades, people tried to get Palestinians, the PLO, Yasser Arafat, to sit down at the table with the Israelis, and that failed time and again. Right, if every time they tried it, it failed. It never held, never stuck. And the great thing about the Abraham Accords were like, we're not going to try and get the Israelis and Palestinians at the table because that hasn't worked in forever. So let's get the Israelis and other, those Arab powerhouses, specifically the Sunni Arab countries, to, sign on. Hey, all right, yeah, we'll recognize each other. We're good. And you like said, it was specifically aimed at marginalizing Iran in the region and counter Iranian influence, especially with the removal of Saddam and Iraq now being basically an Iranian proxy is all it is. And I mean, I thought it was genius. I thought it was a great move to do that, to move to isolate Iran. Don't worry about the Palestinians. Get the other Arab countries at the table and sit them down. Um, yeah, as far as Colombia goes, Colombia, yeah, you're absolutely right. They're a very close ally. But again, South America, Latin America, and let's say it's always been this way, but it's been this way ever since probably, probably even before we built the Panama Canal. There's a lot of Marxist leanings in Latin America. You look at everything we've done down there, from the Iran Contra affair to man, everything. The United Fruit Company banana massacre. Everything that we've done down there, and then we just turned around and we largely ignored Latin America. We've largely ignored Latin America, just like we've ignored Africa, that entire continent. And but when it comes to strategic wins in the last, like, let's say since 1990, really, the fall of the Berlin Wall, that obviously that was a big strategic win. We had a lot to do, we had a lot to do with that, but we didn't have everything to do with that. The U.S. wasn't solely responsible for making that happen. Uh, the Abraham Accords. Trying to think of what else. It's
a tough one. I mean, and you could
know.
probably write a doctoral thesis on it. A doctoral.
Yeah.
So let's open this can of worms, because I'm seeing a lot of stuff, and I really wish you'd get back on X, because you're missing a lot of chatter, right? And a lot of this, it's a lot of chatter, and for years, one of the reasons, we brag about being right about things is I think that the three of us have the ability to kind of sift through a lot of the chatter. I think that was very evident during COVID. So let's talk about some chatter right now. So the other day, I think it was yesterday, man, the news cycle is moving so fast. Trump came out and said I was briefed by the ODNI, Office Director of the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, whatever. He was briefed by ODNI that there is credible threat on his life stemming from an Iranian threat. Okay. So it's like, all right. So, and he puts that out there. It's like, okay, I don't think he would lie about being briefed about that. So I'm going to go ahead and say that's true. Let's say that he was briefed on that. Now, we just talked earlier about how little faith we have in the intelligence apparatus right now. But if you go back, Josh, and remember a couple years ago, do you remember when those two dudes got busted posing as Homeland Security?
Yes.
Yep. And they had weapons, and they had, duped the apartment building they were living in to say, hey, we'll run the security for this apartment. They had made friends. They had made friends with somebody on Jill Biden's protective detail,
Yep.
All this stuff. And then poof, that story went away. And both those guys had ties back to Iran. One guy was Lebanese. The other guy was, I think, straight up Iranian, I think.
Yeah.
But both of them had ties back to Iran. That was 2.5 years ago. I'm like, oops, sleeper cell. the Leonardo DiCaprio. Oh, oh,
Yep.
sleeper cell. That's what a sleeper cell looks like. And I'm like, ooh, wow, they're serious. So you come out with this credible threat against Trump's life. Let's just leave the other two assassination attempts alone for now. Maybe we talk about that later, go down that rabbit hole. But I'm seeing a lot of chatter, Josh, on X about there's a dude, he calls himself Shu. He's a veteran. His
Yep.
at Samasar, you've seen him. I think he's
Yeah.
trying
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's legit.
So he's legit, right? It's like, it's all just chatter though, because you never know. But I'm going to read you what he wrote because I saw some other stuff on this earlier. So I'm going to read you what he wrote. 2 independent sources have provided corroborating reporting to our team stating up to 9 surface-to-air missiles have entered the U.S. through New Mexico border point of entry. The intended recipients of these weapons are 3 teams operating within the U.S. whose intent is to target President Trump's airplane. The appropriate authorities have been notified. I'm posting this in conjunction with so. Now, that's just chatter, okay? But when you look at the totality of circumstance, and I'm bringing this kind of full circle, I want to get your thoughts on it. If you're Iran looking for a strategic win, we talked about this after the first attempted assassination of Trump, where I, for one, don't know how I would react. I'm a pretty level-headed dude, but I do know that my mind would be cast into some pretty dark places if the leading Republican candidate for president who has a really good shot of winning is killed, especially now after 2 attempts. So if you were Iran and you could succeed at killing the leading Republican, candidate, I think a lot of chaos would be sown within the United States, and I think you could chalk that up as a strategic win, especially if it couldn't be proven. And with the fecklessness of our leadership, I don't know. Would we drop nukes on Iran? I don't know. But that chatter's it's bothered me, and I've been hearing that or reading the chatter again that it's been recommended to the Trump team that they take different airplanes. They split up the team, take more airplanes rather than one. It's like, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole in my mind and be all paranoid, but with all of these things happening, it's like, how do you avoid not going down those roads?
Yeah. So I haven't. Again, I haven't been on X in a while, but I know Shu. He's legit. He engaged a lot with us on the 2 Chechnans, the Chechen incident. Back here, and he provided some information on that as well. So he's fairly well connected, and dude's legit. So you remember when I posted in our group chat? I don't know, man. This is a couple months ago.
Yeah.
When I was like, hey, there's some threat data. There's a threat stream out there. It's a little ambiguous, but it's out there. And of course, Perfect or Roger was like, oh, this is crap. This doesn't tell me anything. It was like, I know, man. Like, it's not detailed, but there's a threat stream saying, hey, there's some folks who they came across the southern border, and there's some folks who took advantage of the Afghan, the SIV process, right? When we were evacuating, when we were pulling out of Afghanistan and then taking a bunch of folks with us, and they come to find out, like, yeah, a bunch of those people we put on C-17s, we don't necessarily know exactly who they are. Now, if I'm an adversary, and I'm not talking about just your run-of-the-mill like Taliban or Haqqani, if I'm Iranian, right now I have somebody I can get on some birds, to get into your country that you willingly take, I'm absolutely going to do that. Now, can I prove it? No, but I'm just playing I'm thinking like our adversary, and understanding the process that which we did that, which was not a good process. It's absolutely plausible that people got on those birds who should never have got on those birds. And you start talking about the southern border. If I'm Iran and I can take out not only the the leading Republican candidate who has already demonstrated they are hostile to me, right? I mean, they turned Qasem Soleimani into a bowl of hummus. That was that guy. And, the Abraham Accords, they got Arab countries to posture against us. And I get to sow a whole bunch of discord within the borders of the U.S., potentially sparking, mass civil unrest. Yeah, I'm doing that every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Right? Yeah, absolutely doing it. You want to start talking about surface to air, though. Whew, man, that's spicy. That's really spicy. Um, Now, what would we do in retaliation? I don't think we would do. We would do targeted attacks, cruise missiles, and stuff. There's no way that the current administration would go to war with Iran over that. No way. Absolutely not. Definitely ain't dropping any nuclear weapons on Iran over that.
Well, I think that's justification, though, and I would say that.
Oh, I agree.
I would say that if the tables were turned, if it was the leading Democrat and it's targeted, no, you get a nuke on your head. It's not just because I like this candidate. No, you violated our sovereignty in a very big way. Tehran is going to be glassed because we've definitely proven with all those generals that we're not very good at invading and occupying anymore. So might as well just glass it. We'll just redig the wells. That's it. No big deal. Speaking of World War III, so Putin recently came out and said that if there is a, I think he was talking about air attack, air to ground, right? If there is an attack into Russian territory that is coordinated or in any way participated, by Western powers like NATO or US, he considers that a direct attack. So that's his version of Article 5. So Putin's ratcheting up the rhetoric, and rightly so. But I don't know did you see Zelensky visiting Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
so I think that was a bad move. Number one, I think it was horrible. I think your average American can see right through that they flew Zelensky into Pennsylvania, the key battleground state, took him to a munitions factory where they make 155 rounds, and had him inspecting the 155 rounds, saying, we need more. And then Josh Shapiro, the dumbass governor of Pennsylvania, who, if he weren't Jewish, would be the running mate of Kamala Harris right now, actually was signing shells. And it's like, dude, why are you poking him in the eye? Why are you poking the bear? Was that really necessary? I mean, Ben Shapiro's thing, no relation to Josh Shapiro. Ben Shapiro's thing is he thinks that was an angle for the Polish vote. And it's like, that's kind of a dumb angle for the Polish vote because Poles don't really like Ukrainians. So what are you supposed to, I don't, you're supposed to say, oh, well, we're fighting them in Ukraine so that the Poles don't have to fight them. I think that was a stupid move. I think that, a lot of people are saying foreign election interference. Well, let me tell you something. Zelensky didn't do that of his own accord. He was told to be there.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. No, 100%. He came over to campaign. He was told, you need to come over here to campaign. And I think it was a bad move, too, because, dude, Europe has Ukraine fatigue. And I think a large part of the American taxpayers have Ukraine fatigue as well. There's not as many Ukrainian flags in people's X's bios as there were, this time last year, for sure. I think people have kind of focused, turned their focus to the election now.
I definitely think there'll be an off ramp. I think if Trump wins, that's your off ramp. If he doesn't, you're looking at more of a quagmire over there. Just continue doing what they're doing. But we'll see. I don't know. In other breaking news, Fannie Willis's boyfriend, whatever you want to call it, Nathan Wade, was subpoenaed to court, didn't show up. Now he's missing, and the U.S. Marshals are looking for him.
The prosecutor?
Yeah, Nathan Wade.
How are you not going to show up to court?
There, yeah, House Judiciary Committee evading. Yeah, well, they're calling it political grandstanding. Who knows? But nobody knows where he is. It's not a good thing to have the U.S. Marshals on your ass, no matter what.
No, that's not where you want to be, man. You better show up to court.
I'll tell
That's
you.
wild, dude. That's absolutely wild. Did you see where now the civil case in New York against Trump is the appellate court is like, yeah, there may not even be a case here. Period.
Yeah, because there's not a case, because they're all
No.
misdemeanor charges beyond the statute of limitations. It's a
Yeah.
BS case.
Yeah.
It's like it was,
Yeah. Dude, if the appellate court comes back and says, yeah, and they throw everything out, they're like, yeah, this is not a case and all these charges are dismissed. Dude, they, if I'm Trump, I am suing, dude. I am suing them for every single penny I can get, and I'm going to. I'm going to unleash my team of lawyers. I'm going to unleash them on it. I'll be like, fine. I don't care how you do it, compromise, whatever. I am going to hound these people. Their grandkids are going to be poor because they're going to be paying off their debts.
they're, the usual suspects. Love that movie. There's a part near the beginning where Gabriel Byrne, I can't remember the character he's playing. He's a guy with a British accent. He's talking to the cops and he's like, "You got nothing on me." And he holds up the piece of paper. He goes, "Now you charged me with this shit and I'll beat it." Remember that part? It's like,
Yep.
that's how I there was nothing there in that case. There's nothing there, especially that one. Like the
Yeah.
hush money case, okay, whatever. Even that, but the the real estate thing, come on. The classified documents case, okay, there's more to go on there. I still believe it's nonsense, but the hush money case is nonsense. Yeah,
The
I think
real
you're wrong
estate.
though, dude. I don't think he's going to end up in jail before the election. Maybe after if he loses, but not before.
Well, so I thought that, right? But I think the assassination attempt in Butner changed everything. I think that because they could not jail him after that, right? Because he would have been, dude, he would have been a martyr overnight, right? If they would have put him in jail after that, that would have been okay. I think you would have seen a ground surge, in support of him, like we didn't even see in 2016. So I think that changed it, and they can't do it. And then, it was like, okay, hey, now we're going to do it in September when they were going to, have it. And, now I don't think they can because those real polls, those real polls are kind of over or well, the real polls are starting to come out a little bit rather. And they're showing, hey man, those internal polls, Kamala, not great, not great. Like nobody's really getting excited. You know, uh, I thought they were going to run. I thought the media was going to run this thing, all the way to election day. And dude, even the media has kind of sputtered on Kamala too. The media is even kind of like, oh yeah, let's find some ways to kind of pump her up. Even the media is struggling in ways to pump her up, especially after the debate and then after her interview. God, well, what's his face? Where it was pre-recorded and everything, but even then, it came out and was like, she's terrible.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't get anybody. Nobody gets excited. Nobody's excited to go vote for her. They're excited to go vote against Trump, but they're not excited to vote for Kamala Harris.
Yeah, she's an empty suit, man. I would say I would chalk it up to some of it, at least, to the George W. Bush syndrome that I witnessed firsthand back when he was running for president the first time. The dude spoke at my college graduation and he was just great. He had no script. He might have had some bullet points he talked to, but that dude talked for like 45 minutes. It was great. The audience was laughing. He was smooth. He was folksy. He was personable. And then a few years later, he's running for president. I'm like, who is this guy? Because he gets it in his head. He gets in his own head. And I think that's part of her problem. She's getting into her own head. She's too stiff. It's like, just relax. Just relax. But again, even if she relaxes and is herself, like, who is herself? Who is that? Like she's an
It's
empty suit, dude. And if you haven't
yeah.
seen, I'm telling you, do you have the ability to go back and watch shows that aired like a week ago on whatever streaming service or whatever you use? Asking you a question.
Um. Oh, I thought I thought that was you were making a statement. Uh, I'd have to go back and look. I think on a couple of them you can
Okay,
go back and
so
watch historical.
if you can watch the Gutfeld where Trump comes on,
Okay.
that I think that that's his best performance, period, that he's done that I've seen. The dude is just sitting there. He's relaxed. You know, if you've ever watched Gutfeld, I love the Gutfeld show, man.
Yeah.
That's my favorite show on TV now. But, you know, it's them just talking smack and whatever. And then there's, you know, usually four guests. And then this one, Trump was one of the guests. And he was great. He was on the ball. And it's like, okay, that I wish he would do that more often because he didn't ramble on as much as he usually does. That's my biggest problem with Trump now, is he just rambles. He just
Yeah.
rambles too much, man. It's stream of conscious. It's like, dude, just stick to a point. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that the Harris campaign is hurting. But even as much as they're hurting, the election is still going to be close. It's still going to be close.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think the election is going to be very close. But the campaign is hurting. You know, Tim Walz came out at the very beginning, and nobody really got excited about him. You know, as much as they probably thought he was going to. The stolen valor thing plagued them. I still think there's going to be an October surprise, and I think I think you're correct. I think it's going to be a Jerry Sandusky type thing because of his involvement with his high school. You know, when he was a assistant coach, and you know him going out and on the boys sports teams. I'm like, in the bathroom, they would be like, Coach Waltz was always in the bathroom with us. It was like, oh yeah, there's going to be some Jerry Sandusky allegations come out in October. I bet. I think you're spot on with that.
Yeah.
You know, with Trump, I'll go back and watch it. I watched Gutfeld, a few times. But I'll go back and check it out. It's gonna be it's gonna be interesting. You know, I saw I was just in so I just spent 2 weeks in Hawaii for work. I saw a total of zero Harris Walz campaign stuff. None whatsoever. There were Trump banners hanging on fences in neighborhoods. There were, people walking around with Hawaii for Trump shirts. There was people selling Trump swag, on the sidewalk, down in Waikiki. Now it's all anecdotal, right? Does this mean Hawaii's going to go red? Absolutely not. All right, nobody should think that because they've been electing idiots like Hirono, to the Senate. But it's just, man, I don't see it. Even around here in North Carolina, now granted, I haven't been to Wake County or I haven't been to, Mecklenburg County over in Charlotte, like anytime lately. And I've seen, well, my wife saw two Harris signs the other day, kind of near us. But by and large, I just don't see it, and, I have to say that, the week before I went to Hawaii, I got to go to Amarillo, Texas for the very first time. Never been to Amarillo, never been to the Panhandle of Texas. Been all over the I-10 corridor in San Antonio and Houston and all the very cosmopolitan places like that. But I'd never been to the Panhandle of Texas, and I got to meet the infamous Herschel Jericho, and I got to meet Luke's mom. And Luke's mom is hands down, one of the nicest people that I've ever met. She was great. She was fantastic. Got to go have dinner with her and Herschel Jericho, and Luke
And Jed.
and Jed. Yep, and Jed was there. Jed, another listener. Thanks for coming out, Jed. It was great meeting you. But I had a great time. Got to see a little bit of Amarillo. Not much. Luke says I only got to see the bad parts. I saw a lot of vape shops and Love's truck stops, but or the Flying J. rather. Um, but that was good, man. It was good. I hope you get a chance to get back out there.
Well, you got to meet some local luminaries.
Yeah, got to meet Darren.
Got to meet one of the senior law enforcement folks in
Yep.
the area. That was pretty cool. One of the sheriffs.
That was
You
very
got to
cool.
meet a couple other guys that actually listen. They swung by. You wouldn't remember them, but they swung by. Um, got to meet the mayor. Got to meet
I
the mayor
did.
of
I got to meet
Amarillo.
the. I felt like a little bit of a, like a little bit of a celebrity, right? I was
I
like,
know.
man, I
That's
was
right.
like, I show up and I get to meet some of the senior law enforcement folks, and I get to meet the mayor. Shit, man,
And then you
people are
got
gonna
to
look at
meet
me and think,
a VP of a bank.
I know,
Dude,
dude, and
it
it's
was awesome. So Darren, share this with the group. So Darren, I told Darren, I was like, "Hey, I got this guy from this company coming in. They bank with y'all. Uh, would you mind meeting us at the spot?" And Darren's like, and I had to text him a few times, like, "Don't ignore me, man. Don't ignore me." And I didn't tell him who it was.
he was so
So,
disappointed when I
oh
showed up.
no, he wasn't. He so he meets us, and it's that place I've described on the show before. It's like this little I can't remember the name. I never can remember the name of this place, but it's like it's in this basement type thing. You got to go downstairs to get to it. And everybody, to be a member of this club, it's open 24/7. This It's not even a club, it's just a room. You got to have a key to it, right? You can go in there 24/7, and if you've paid, you have your own locker. It's like a wire mesh like locker where people put their bourbon in there, their bourbon or whatever they like to drink, vodka, whatever. So your stuff is just sitting there behind lock and key, in your little locker. It's got your little name on it and everything. And you just go in there and just chill. It's like a little speakeasy, right? And Darren always
Yeah.
says they should hire a homeless dude to like sleep down there, to kind of add to the add to the dinginess of it. And you go into this place, it's really cool. It's dark and it's nice. It's a guy place. So we show up and Josh and I walk around the corner. Darren's there waiting for us. And we walk up and Darren doesn't really know who Josh is. So I was like, Darren, this is Josh. Darren, like his eyes. I've known Darren a long time. His eyes like, what? Oh man, great to meet you. So I kind of forced Darren to come out, but it was a good time, man. And then I had a Monte Cristo sandwich that night because I didn't care. I was like, but yeah, Amarillo's a good town, man. It's a good town. It's one of those places they say that, if you stay there long enough to wear out a new pair of shoes, you'll stay forever, but only if you're not from there. Most people who are
Yeah,
from Amarillo think it's horrible, but it's like, it's really not that bad. It's got
I
everything you
didn't.
need.
Yeah, and even from the small piece I saw, it wasn't bad. It was absolutely not bad. Because looking on the map, looking on the map and stuff, and I get to see the whole, the whole town. But looking on the map, yeah, it looks like it had
Well,
everything everything you needed.
well, the
Um,
next time you go, you got to go down to Powder Canyon, second
yeah,
largest canyon in the United States. It's something to see. It's pretty cool.
yeah, I wanted to try and make it down there. And time got away from me. I just couldn't. That trip was too quick. But especially after reading Empire of the Summer Moon, like
Oh
I
yeah,
definitely want to get down there and and check that place out because that's a big Comanche stronghold. Um, and the yeah, no, dude, that speakeasy that Darren took it to was super super cool, right? And Luke didn't do it justice in the description because you go inside and everything is like mahogany,
yeah.
right? It's like a dark wood and it smells of leather bound books, and stuff. And it's got these big, these big oversized, like big leather chairs. And of course, there was a group of guys in there who probably in their 60s, all wearing Rolexes and you know, Cartier tanks and stuff on their wrists, holding, we walk in there and they're all in there, holding court. Um, and it was cool. Everybody was super nice. Darren introduced us around and everything. It was just a really cool spot. And Darren let me drink some of his Elmer T. Lee, which is not easy to come by, as a bourbon connoisseur, man. That is a hard bottle to come by. So Darren, if he listens to this episode, man, I really, really appreciate the hospitality there. That was top notch, man. Even though you were probably disappointed that it was, me and not Roger, um, or somebody else from an actual, like, a real company, who deals in real money and stuff. Not,
Somebody from the C-suite.
right? Yeah, somebody from the C-suite, right? It looks like you brought me who? You brought me this guy? This guy's not even from the C-suite. Like this guy's money like funds our operating budget for about 27 seconds. Um, you know. So, but
and
it's
and
all
hey,
it's
hey,
all good.
also this, hey, Darren works for a bank. I don't want to. It's not a big deal. I don't want to call it out by name because I don't know how Darren is. I don't know, but he works for a bank there in Amarillo. Okay, works for a bank in Amarillo, and the president or whoever of the bank said, "Hey, Darren, you're a pretty interesting guy. You know, you got some interesting thoughts on things. Uh, a lot of people like you. We're going to put you in charge of some of our marketing materials." So hold on.
Oh
So
yes,
what
I
does
love
Darren
this.
do? Darren orders some marketing materials and puts the logo of the bank on it. And I hadn't seen Darren face to face in, I don't know, a decade or two. And I go up, I move back to the area and I go see him up at the bank. And he gives me a bunch of promotional stuff. And the first thing he gives me is this. If you're looking at the screen,
I love it.
it's a little bottle opener, right? And it
I
comes with a
love it.
warning label. It's like, do not take this on a plane. Mail it back because he had given it to some people and they put it on their carry-on. It's a grenade with the bank logo on it. And they'd put it in their carry-on. And yeah, the TSA gave them a little bit of hassle for that. But Darren gave me some more promotional items to to give to you guys. And Darren calls them pig stickers, but it's basically a spear
I love
with
it.
the bank logo on it. And so I got to mail that to Roger and Josh. And Darren also has machetes with the bank logo on it. And yeah, the president of the bank's like, yeah, maybe we'll put somebody else in charge of the promotional items.
Oh, he nah, man, dude. Darren's a cool cat, and Darren had so maybe we'll get him on here one day, um, and have him. We need to get Darren on the podcast. All right,
I
so
know.
that needs to happen.
I've told him
Um,
that, and he's like, man, I just don't know what I would say. And then
okay,
after the stories he told you,
dude, dude, Darren, look, all you got to do is get on here and tell the story about Cadillac Ranch that you told me, dude. That I guarantee you that'll probably be one of our most listened to episodes. That was such, dude. That was such a badass story, man. I'm not going to tell it because it's not my story to tell. Um, but holy cow, what a story! What a story, man.
so for
Yeah,
those of y'all who aren't familiar, a lot of people have heard of it, but outside of Amarillo, along I-40, traveling west toward Albuquerque, is something called the Cadillac Ranch. And there was a eccentric millionaire that lived in Amarillo that just did weird stuff with his money. And what this guy decided to do is he bought, like, I don't know, 10 acres, maybe more, outside next to I-40, and he buried. And somebody's going to revoke my Amarillo card because I can't remember how many Cadillacs. I'm going to say there's 10. He buried these Cadillacs nose down halfway to where the ass end of the Cadillac is sticking out of the ground. There's these 10 Cadillacs just out in a field, like all in a line. It's called the Cadillac Ranch. And yeah, the story involves Darren and I out at the Cadillac Ranch. He was on maybe the 8th date with his current wife. So Darren and I are out there with his I'm not going to tell the story, but we're out there with his girlfriend at the time, his current wife. They had tried to set me up with one of his wife's or his girlfriend's friends. And we're out there drinking beer, and things got one thing led to another, and yeah, but that was only part of the story, and I still remember that, and I think that's a great story in and of itself. But Darren took it
yeah,
to a whole other level in the years that followed.
dude. It is a phenomenal story. And Darren, we're putting you on the spot, brother. You got to come on and tell that story. It's such a great one. You know, it is such a great little story. Darren Darren may give may dude, based on that story, and then some of the other things that you told me, dude, Darren may give Ted the running for the second most interesting man in the world.
Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff and he knows a lot of people. People naturally gravitate toward Darren. I don't know why. He's a goofy dude.
But
He's
I can
intelligent.
totally see it.
He's intelligent, but not like he'd say all this. He'd say all this the same. He's intelligent, but not like brilliant. You know, he's not like an Elon Musk type, but he's personable. People like to listen to him. He's tall, so that's a thing. You know, when you're tall, you've got a unique voice, kind of stands out. People will listen to you. You know, you got a unique look. You don't look like everybody else. People gravitate toward him. But one of the things Darren, and when he gets on the podcast, we'll have him explain this to everyone, is one of the reasons he's able to forge some of these friendships with really famous people. It's like, dude from Amarillo, what? Is because he writes letters. He doesn't type letters. He sits down and he writes letters to people. And he says, 9 times out of 10, the I don't hear anything back. But that one time is the time where, crazy things happen. And yeah, man, you're right. Darren, he's done some interesting things, that's for sure. But he didn't,
Yeah, I need to. Yeah, man, I can totally, I totally see it where people kind of gravitate toward him, because at the end of the day, you can tell like that dude, is very good at his job, right? He's obviously in a position where he has he has a sphere of influence, but he probably takes his job seriously, but he doesn't take himself seriously. He's affable. Darren came off to me and Darren. If I got you, if I got you all wrong, let me know. But Darren's that guy that Darren can do his bank job right, and he can be with famous people. He can be hey, all right, no, this is what we got to do, blah blah, and and stuff like that. And then you can look at it and be like, hey man, we found this big thing in the desert. It looks like a bomb. We're gonna go shoot fireworks at it. You want to do it? And he'd be like, yes, totally. Let's go. Right. That
yes.
was my impression. Right.
Your impression is
like to raise some
accurate.
hell.
Your impression is accurate. He likes to do the things, man. He's run with the bulls. He talked me. He talked me into doing that ultra that we're gonna do late December. He's an interesting dude. So speaking of writing letters, because let's stop blowing up Darren's head. We've had enough of that. Speaking of letters, so let's talk to some friends. And Josh, we talked at the beginning of the episode about, if money was no option, what kind of car would you get? Well, let's say that, and I'm going to give you a hint on this, and hopefully you'll answer right. Let's say the import restrictions are not in the game here, and you've got $30,000, $40,000 to spend on a vehicle. What are you going to get?
Toyota Hilux.
Boom, exactly. So how about we write a letter to the Toyota Corporation and basically tell them, hey, listen, you've got a market out there right now. The veteran thing is kind of fading away, but we've still got Sean Ryan out there. We've still got, Tim Kennedy, all these dudes. You got Black Rival Coffee, all this stuff. The veteran thing is still there, but it's fading, right? You have a market right here where it doesn't even have to be a real Hilux. Just, you'd encapsulate all this in a letter and make it sound more intelligent than I'm talking right now. But it's like, just make a Tacoma and call it a Hilux.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
I would buy one. I'd buy one tomorrow. I would be on the waiting list for a Toyota Hilux, and you could have different models, right? Think about it. You could have different models. You don't want to call it the Taliban model, but you could call it whatever, the Hilux Herat edition or whatever.
Dude, the OIF edition, the OEF
oh my
edition.
God. And you could put little things on it. Like you could have like in the back, you don't know just little marketing things. Like in the back, you could have four pillars or three pillars in the back. And it's like in the bed. It's like, this is where you would mount your Dushka.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, overnight, a million. Overnight,
Yeah.
a million orders.
Dude, in the bed, it would be, this is where the Dishka and the women go. Right? That would be dude, that would be straight pimp. And you know how Toyota has like the throwback, the colors, it's like the
Oh
orange,
yeah.
yellow, and brown like stripes. But then you turn around, you do that in the Afghan flag color, right?
Oh god.
Scheme. So that's your OEF edition. And then the Iraqi flag color scheme for the OIF edition.
Your Horn of
Um,
Africa edition.
have a HOA edition. Oh yeah, dude. That'd be legit. Toyota, I hope
Dude.
you're listening.
It's such an opportunity. It really is, because the two guys I was talking to, uh, they were like, "Oh, I would definitely order one for sure." It doesn't have to be fancy, but just driving around in
No.
a Hilux. I mean, those are some of the best times of my life driving around in a Hilux.
It was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
Oh
But
my
yeah, the
gosh.
the Hilux, man. The Hilux and a big bongo truck. A Jenga truck. It's funny because Afghanistan, they were Jenga trucks because they were all decorated and had all this crap all over them. And Iraq, they were called bongo trucks because that's what all the Iraqi police rolled around in when they got blown up.
Hey,
Um,
have you seen the movie Kandahar?
uh-uh,
It's not
not
bad,
yet.
man. It's
I'll have
got
to check it out.
the guy from 300, Gerard Butler.
Yeah,
It's not bad.
yeah, place it.
I
I'll
mean,
check it out.
it's kind of cheesy. Parts of it are cheesy, but it's kind of cool because you got the Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan thing, and it takes place after the U.S. has left. So
Oh,
it
okay.
is kind of interesting. There's an ISI guy, you know, who's kind of pulling the strings with Taliban. It's pretty good, man. I think you dig it.
I'll check it out.
Yeah,
I'll put it on the list for
yeah.
the.
Check out.
Uh, I'll see if it's on Netflix. I'll download it for my next trip to Hawaii.
I can't remember which platform it's on. I'll look at that.
I'll
But
find it.
so I want to ask you this. I want to get your view, because it's been a while since we recorded. It's been like over a month. And Russell, we're recording tonight, so yeah, you can stop, texting me. I know it's been a month. I know. But a pretty big intelligence operations coup happened in the state of Lebanon, really. The Israelis. So tell us about that, Josh. What do you with the beepers and the walkie-talkies?
So what had happened was so in a move to improve their operational security, Lebanese Hezbollah decided they were getting away from cell phones for communication. So they decided that they were going to go to pagers. Well, I mean, not a lot of people carry pagers these days, other than terrorists, maybe drug dealers still carry pagers. I don't know. And and some of our special operations personnel who are on a pretty short recall, um, they carry pagers too, which is weird. But so Hezbollah ordered all these pagers, and a lot of them came from Taiwan. And so the Mossad pulled off what is one of the greatest espionage counterterrorism operations probably in history. They intercepted these pagers. They put a very, very small amount of some type of chemical in it, which would basically explode when it got hot. When it reached a certain temperature, it got hot. And so they were able to essentially send this mass page to all these pagers, heat up the battery, and which ignited these, this trace amount of explosives that were in them. And in one fell swoop, what was it, like 2,000 Lebanese Hezbollah affiliated folks, either, got their hip, a chunk of their hip blown off. They got their hands, fingers blown off, half their face blown off, because they get a page, and what's the first thing you do? I mean, I had a pager way back in the day, and I thought I was super cool. But you got a page on it. What was the first thing you do? You pulled it off your belt, you pulled it out of your pocket, and you brought it up to your, vicinity of your face, so you could see, well, what number is calling me, what number is paging me. And so about that time, right, is when these things started blowing up. And they were able to basically illuminate almost the entire Hezbollah network. So they verified who's in Hezbollah, who's not in Hezbollah, right? They confirmed and denied a bunch of suspicions on folks like, hey, they're tied into Hezbollah. Oh well, they didn't have a pager, so maybe not. But everybody had a pager, and it was funny because the Iranian ambassador, his pager blew up too. Which should not be shocking to anyone who's been paying attention. But the Mossad once again demonstrated, and then there was other other electronics started exploding the very next day. Radios, MVGs, all this other stuff that Hezbollah was using. And again, the Mossad just, they took everybody, they got everybody on the bus, and they drove the bus to school and showed everybody, this is how you do it. This is how you do supply chain interdiction. This is how you do counterterrorism. I think it'll go down as the greatest counterterrorism operation ever. It's amazing the tactical patience for them to do that, and then wait for the most opportune time to absolutely brilliant operation.
Ooh, yeah. Just I think the cutout was in Hungary.
Yeah,
basically it was there was a Mossad set up, or probably bought out, whatever, however they did it. They set up a cutout company in Hungary. This cutout company contacted the parent company in Taiwan. So this cutout company, their charter is, we make pagers. That's what we do. So they contacted this supplier in Taiwan, and basically, this happens all the time in business. They were like, hey, can we put your logo on the pager? Because it's basically the same thing as you do. And the Taiwanese, unwittingly, they're like, yeah, sure, for 30% or whatever it is. So somewhere in there, that Hungarian company made contact with Hezbollah and said, hey, we're this company out of Taiwan, right? We ship out of Hungary, but we're the company. We're Motorola, whatever it is. They're like, yeah, we'll buy it straight from you. So I don't know where they were assembled. They were probably assembled in Israel, probably shipped to Hungary or whatever, and then shipped to Hezbollah. I don't know. I don't know how that piece worked. But just absolutely amazing. And Josh, they had to have seen it coming. They had to have anticipated that this was going to happen, the Israelis. But you can't do this in a matter of a couple of weeks. I mean,
no.
This is months, right? But October 7th did happen almost a year ago. So I would say maybe this was a plan even before October 7th. Let's just have this in our back pocket, But the fact that they're doing it with walkie-talkies, and if the reports with NVGs are true, wow. It's I also read, though, some of the chatter. The chatter again was that they did not want to execute, when the Israelis did not want to execute at that point. What I was reading was a few of the devices started overheating, and people started making phone calls within Lebanon saying, hey, my device is messed up. What's going on? Israelis intercepted that, and were like, well, it's now or never. So they just went ahead and executed. Wow. That's because when I saw that, that's like the perfect prelude to a ground invasion, and a quick ground invasion, not 2 or 3 weeks later. This, the ground invasion is coming. It's coming. But I think this is a move you want to make a few days before a ground invasion. Not necessarily, a few weeks before it. But yeah, I'm with you, dude. That's they said that's the gold standard right there. Yeah, that operation they pulled off. I mean, we've done some similar stuff in the past, but never infiltrating the supply chain quite like that. you insert yourself into the supply chain, kind of downstream a little bit. But man, midstream like they were, wow, unbelievable.
Yeah. I think it was so I think it was a year or so in the over a year or so in the making, because what I read was that Hezbollah made the organizational decision to go away from cell phones,
Right.
right? And anybody that's picked up a newspaper, since 9/11 knows that cell phone's going to get you killed. If you're a bad guy, that cell phone is going to get you killed. Ukrainians are finding out about it now, on the battlefield in Ukraine. Hey man, that cell phone in your hand that you're posting to your Insta and you're posting to, X and stuff like that, that thing's going to get you killed. And so Hezbollah made that organizational decision that they were moving to pagers. And, I'm sure, the Mossad has Hezbollah penetrated, over and over. And they probably like, oh, no, we'll help them with that. We will help you go to pagers. And, then however it all worked out, man, an amazing operation. And I would say that even if Hezbollah had pulled that off on, the IDF, I would have been like, man, that's an amazing operation. Like that's legit. That is, I don't care who does it. Just the tactical patience and being able to, the OPSEC and everything to pull that off, man. That's going to be the gold standard for a very, very long time. So
just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I was of the same mindset. I was like, oh, 48 hours and Israel's crossing. They're going to cross the berm, and they have it. And I was like, okay, well, I guess not.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say what's really interesting. At one point, I want to, and I'll throw it over to you, get your opinion. So Israel just killed, I can't remember his name, but they showed a wanted poster. This wanted poster was from the 80s. You remember when, I vaguely remember it. I had to go back and look it up. Remember when the plane got hijacked and they killed that Navy diver and they dumped him on the tarmac? So one of the guys responsible for that, Israel just killed in Lebanon. And I'm thinking to myself, it was 3 guys that were the primary suspects. How has the U.S. not already taken care of that? Why is the U.S. not taking that? Happened in the 80s, and with the global war on terrorism, everything, and the fact that I won't get into too many details, but I mean, Lebanon has not been off limits to us, right? Lebanon has not been off limits to us. I've been there twice. And to have those guys still running around, to me is, I won't say negligent, but it's a head scratcher, right? It's like, how have we not gotten those? Why that should have been, because you think about the Mossad, right? The Mossad hunted down every single member of Black September who was involved in the Munich massacre during the Olympics. Every single one. Putin, right? And people go, oh, Josh is a Putin lover. Putin, it may be years, but you're going to take a sip of tea one day and it's going to have plutonium in it, right? Because Putin does not suffer betrayal, right? The Mossad they have a very long memory. Did we just decide they're not worth going after, or did we just get caught up in, or do we not have the capability to do it? What do you think? Why were those guys allowed to run free for so long? And then we weren't even the ones that killed them.
Well, I still say you need to go listen to the Sean Ryan with Mike Benz on it. That one really blackpilled me, because the guy was a communications director within the State Department. He was a deputy director or something within the State Department with the Trump administration. Have you listened to it yet? No.
I'm writing
he laid out kind of, what these competing requirements against our national interest when it comes to information flow and things like that. And this ties back into your point, because I'm listening to it, I'm like, God, because he ties in Burisma into it, the the
Oh
Atlantic
wow.
Council, all these things. And it's like when I think of these guys, I'm of two minds. Number one, I'm like, well, the last couple months have shown how incompetent certain, entities are within the federal government. Okay, so maybe it's just incompetence. And maybe it's just like, well, that guy's just not important to us. Or maybe the other side of my mind is like maybe those guys were, had some value to somebody in Langley. Maybe they had some value. Even if they didn't have value, maybe somebody thought that they did. And I don't know.
They were
I think
probably on the books.
probably that's what I'm saying. It's like, fucking God. Like, jeez, man, you go
He
down this
was
rabbit
known
hole.
to the FBI.
Yeah, the whole Benghazi thing. Let's
Yeah.
have our network so that anytime we need to run guns and weapons into Syria to provide to these people who are our friends this week or whatever, we have that network set up. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they're on the books. Oh, yeah. By the way, everyone, if you want to know why Benghazi happened, it was to shut down weapons shipments into Syria, which they absolutely did from Benghazi anyway.
Nope.
That's what that was all about. Now I have never seen anything classified, but I read between the lines, I read the tea leaves, and I know what happened. There
Yeah.
was a
100%.
weapons shipment, what would you call it? Pipeline going through
Yeah.
Benghazi. Period.
Yeah.
The
They
CIA
were the
was
right.
running it. They knew it. The ISIS knew it, and well, maybe even above ISIS, they knew it. Probably Syrian government, actually. They're like, we can't be having this.
Yep.
So Benghazi happened, shut down that particular pipeline. That's why it effing happened. Period.
Yeah. No, there was absolutely there was a rat line through Benghazi, pushing weapons into Syria.
Ugh.
Remember when this all started, when Syria all started and ISIS kicked off, and it was like, nah, man, we're gonna arm, we're gonna arm these guys against the Syrian army, right? Against
It
against
really
the
sucked.
actual Syrian military, and you're like, you mean we're arming the group called ISIS? And then a couple months later, it's like, hey, yeah, we probably shouldn't be arming those guys because they're the bad guys. It's like, okay, well, good. After we've given them a whole lot of stuff, and then we
We've
got to
lived
go fight them.
we lived through some interesting times, man. That's all there is to it. Because back in 2007, 8, 6, 7, 8, I sat there in Iraq, in northern Iraq, and watched the seeds of ISIS grow. And back then, ISIS it wasn't called ISIS. It was called Islamic State of Iraq. It was called ISI, you know?
Yep.
And ISI back then did not have a religious bent. Not really. It was basically just an organized crime is what it was.
Yeah,
And they would justify the things they did. And they were competing with AQ. They were competing with Al Qaeda. And
yeah.
they
They
were
hated,
winning. Yeah, and they were
and Al
winning
Qaeda hated
because
them.
yes. And Islamic State of Iraq was winning because they were more about the bottom line, which is making money. So it was organized crime. And man, we were swacking those guys left and right. Holy cow, it was great. But then, we left and they got their religious bit. They got an actual, they got a little fire in their belly. And that's when it really took off. And and what sparked that memory was with you saying we're arming who now? I just couldn't believe what was going on with the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton. I was just like, this is not going to turn out well. It's not. I wish we had a
No,
podcast back then.
we have armed time and time again. Every time we arm a group, it generally ends poorly for us. Now one could argue, arming the Mujahideen in the '80s to kill Soviets was a good thing, and I'm not going to say that dead Soviets is not a good thing, right? That was a great thing, and shooting down Hind helicopters with stingers like that, dude. Man, I love reading about that as a kid, right? But at the same time, nobody. It seems that nobody in the USG, and it's partly because we think of foreign policy in 4 to 8 year increments, but nobody in the USG looks over the horizon. Nobody. It's like, hey, how is this going to look? What is this going to be in 10 years from now? Right? Turn around. It's like, hey, we're going to have to go fight all these, all these mujahideen dudes. We're going to have to go fight all these dudes. And then with, in South America, how many times have we armed the wrong groups in South America? And then ISIS and in Syria in the very, very early days, even it's just, man, like Roger says, we can't get off the X, sometimes on some of this stuff. Our foreign policy has been terrible. It's been terrible for, well, really, since the wall came down. Our foreign policy has been terrible. You take a look at what China's done in the last week or so. So, China hacked all of our internet service providers. And all of our internet service providers, specifically some of the departments and stuff that deal with our critical infrastructure. All right, so they can introduce malware, they can introduce it, or they can just shut it all down. If they want to. And then for the first time in 40 years, China conducted an intercontinental ballistic missile test, and put one of their big ICBMs into the ocean a couple thousand miles south of Hawaii. Now, people might not think that's a big deal, but where did all our carrier strike groups in the Pacific, where are they all at right now? Well, they're in the Middle East because they've got to go over there and deal with, what's going on with Lebanon and Israel and Yemen, which is Yemen's it's another failed state. We're going to have to deal with that at some point, and all the Houthis. And so there's no deterrent in the Pacific right now. And so China has put all three of their carriers to sea, doing sea trials, doing exercises, launching missiles, and stuff. And that's absolutely intentional. As soon as 7th Fleet moved out and, moved over into the Red Sea and stuff, China's like, oh, okay, not a problem. We're going to go out here and do a little show of force, force projection, keep the Philippines, on edge from what they're doing to the Philippine Navy and Coast Guard on the South Thomas Shoals. Dude, again, our foreign policy is a disaster, and it has been for quite some time. But yet, all of these, Donald Trump, going back to, bringing it back full circle, Donald Trump was president for 4 years. Clinton was president for 8. Bush was president for 8. Obama was president for 8. And Biden's been president for 4. But all of those people that I just named, they're going to turn around and tell you that Donald Trump's a problem. They're going to tell you that Donald Trump's a problem and he's the reason that the country's so messed up.
It's for the greater. It's for the greater good, though, Josh. For the greater good, right?
Always the alibi of tyrants. Always the alibi of tyrants.
I was thinking about this. You got some good points with China, but really good points, and you know where I stand on that. But there's a lot of hate for George W. Bush. On the left, folks on the right got their own reasons for disliking George W. Bush, but he invaded Iraq. So many, hundreds of thousands killed, whatever. I just share a little anecdote with you. It's, 2006, 7, 8, spent some time in Mosul, going into town, and, I was like, holy shit. In the Palestine district of Mosul, I was like, man, this is war. Like, this is war. We were shooting it out with the bad guys, IEDs going off. I was like, yeah, this is it. If I signed up for anything, this is what it was. And it's war, and it was bad, and it's not good. We're fighting for control, trying to root out Al-Qaeda, trying to root out Islamic State of Iraq, going after targets and whatnot. And it was bad, but cafes were still open, believe it or not. Some markets were still open. The Bobble Top Market was open every day. Huge market. We had some of our folks coming in from outside of Mosul, some Arab Christians working with us. So there was still freedom of movement and stuff. Then fast forward, George Bush is out of office in 2008, and then we get Obama. And I went back to Mosul in 2016, 17, and I saw true devastation. I thought I saw what war was before, but Mosul was like on the level of Dresden. What I
Yeah,
imagined Dresden probably was. It was leveled. Nothing standing taller than one story. Um, True devastation. And it's like, so what was the point? But Obama gets a pass because Obama's like, well, we hey, we got out of Iraq. I ended this mess. And it goes to the foreign policy. What you're saying, it's not forward looking. It's 8 years, 8 years at a time, sometimes 4. But that what people don't see, there's a difference between seeing it on the news and seeing it with your eyes and smelling it. It's like, this is devastation. This is what poor decisions truly come to. Because what have we said? Not all Iraqis are bad, man. Are you kidding me? Very few are. They're just trying to live their lives, man. They're just trying to go to work and provide, and man, they just completely leveled their city. Now, can you blame that on George W. Bush? Well, maybe. Can you blame that on Obama? Yeah, probably. But man, that city was leveled, and Mosul is a big city.
massive.
I mean, it was
It was massive.
just the decisions we make. Josh, in my old age, I'm getting to be kind of like a hippie, like an anti-war hippie. And the reason I say that is because, man, you don't, especially when it comes to stuff like Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm not an anti-war hippie when it comes to, hey, let's nuke China. Let's nuke them while the nuking is good. Okay. But when it
Fully
comes to
support.
little brush fire wars and stuff, it's like, I'm a hippie. It's like, why are we doing this? Are you considering the human cost of this? I mean, how do we really benefit? How does anybody really benefit other than Halliburton and General Dynamics and Boeing? Well, Boeing, Jesus.
Yeah,
Man.
and Raytheon. No, man, I'm with you. I'm with you. I still like Afghanistan. Again, if we would have left Afghanistan after Tora Bora, left behind, left behind a capture kill force, that did targeted strikes into the tribal areas in Pakistan and along the border regions, dude, they would have been. I would have gone. That was perfectly executed, right? Perfectly executed. We went in, we toppled them, we killed. We killed a lot. We killed a lot of Taliban and a lot of Al Qaeda guys. A lot, and right as we should have. But nobody has ever been able to show me how Iraq is now better off. Nobody's been able to prove it to me beyond a shadow of a doubt because, kind of like you. So, I was there in '05, big army, and we were talking to, one of the locals that was helping us working with us. And he was like, guys, I got to tell you, you guys are really, really jacked this up. He was like, Saddam was bad, right? He was no fan of Saddam. He was no fan. He was Sunni, full like, but he was no fan of Saddam. But he was like, hey, brother, check this out. When Saddam was in charge, cars didn't blow up in the market when I was there, trying to buy stuff. My electricity was always on. I always had water. Like you had to deal with the Fedayeen. You just had to make sure, you towed the line. But at the end of the day, dude, he was like, dude, honestly, he goes, things were better off with Saddam because I can't drive anywhere without either getting run over by one of your vehicles, out getting, my radiator shot out. My electricity only works a couple hours a day now. And oh, by the way, I don't know what car is going to explode or I don't know what person is going to explode when I go to work. He's like, so how am I better off? And I didn't have an argument. I didn't have a comeback for that. I was like, hey man, I can't I can't argue with that.
It's the same in
You know?
Afghanistan. You think the dirt farmer in the Paktia province, is his life better off under the U.S. or under the Taliban or under Soviets? That guy doesn't care. And that's the majority of the people in Afghanistan, Iraq. They don't care. It's like, you remember last year or whatever, I was having problems with the mayor up here. Not personally, but mayor and city council and all this stuff. It's like, they suck. They've got to go. And then some invading force comes in here and gets rid of them. Oh, that's great. That's exactly what I wanted. But I don't have running water anymore. my electricity goes out at 7 o'clock every night, doesn't come on until, you know, 12, noon the next day. It's like, geez, yeah, that kind of sucks. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
God, man, we learned a lot, did we not? We
Yeah.
learned a lot. We did. Stanley McChrystal maybe not so much.
Doesn't sound like it. It's yeah, I'm very much anti-war when it comes to the brush fires, as you put it. I think it's a great way to put it, right? It's like, okay, why? Like, really, truly, why are we doing this? And are we going to get sucked into a quagmire? Because remember, we tried to make Afghanistan the Soviets' Vietnam, right? We made them. We kept them there for almost 10 years, and we were like, yeah, we made that their Vietnam, and then we get drug it there, and we stayed for 20. Um, and so but yeah, when it comes to like China, Iran, Russia, dude, crank up the Enola Gay. Like, I won't lose a second of sleep. We can nuke Beijing tomorrow, and dude, I'll throw a party.
You
It's
know,
because those are our true adversaries, and those are people we've largely ignored to our own detriment.
so the year was 2001, Josh. Um, the year was 2001, and it was my first deployment. You beat me with deployments, with first deployments, because you went to Kosovo before me, or was it
Oh
Bosnia? Yeah,
yeah,
you went to Bosnia
Kosovo.
or Kosovo a couple rotations before me, so I'm finally in Bosnia, hip deep in hand grenade or Kosovo. Sorry, I'm hip deep in hand grenade pins in Kosovo. Right? I'm like, this shit. Working my little tactical human team.
I love it.
And we went up to Kachanik. I think it was Kachanik. Was Kachanik the one in the mountains?
Yeah, yeah, it was
Yeah.
down close to the border with Macedonia.
I think, yeah. So it was Kachanik. So we go to Kachanik, and it was, the cross-eyed warrant. What was his first name? The
Glenn.
cross-eyed Glenn. Yeah. So Glenn was invited to like a little party thing, and he decided to take our team with him. So we're in this party in Kachanik. There were some Russians. There was a Russian presence in Kachanik. And so at this party,
Oh wait, are you talking about Kachanik? Are you talking about Sturpsha? Because Sturpsha was a Serbian enclave up in the mountains with the ski resort.
maybe it was Sturpsha. Yeah, it was Sturpsha. You're right. My bad.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're up in Sturpsha, and we're at this party, and we weren't drinking. A couple guys were having a beer or two, but General Order 1 was a thing, and we had to drive an hour and a half back to Bonsteel.
Yeah.
And there was a Russian dude there. I was sitting at their table, and this guy was looking at me. He's older than me. He was probably in his, at that time, mid-30s, maybe late 30s. He's looking at me. I'm a soldier, E5. And he's just like, he wasn't being rude, but he was like kind of staring daggers, like, who do you think you are? And I've got my 9mm, and all this stuff. So this guy he wasn't being aggressive about it, Josh. Because I speak a little Russian, he spoke a little English, so we're communicating. He wasn't being aggressive, but basically he was kind of calling me out. And he's like, you think you're hard? You think you're hard? And I was like, well, I'm a U.S. soldier, saying some stupid shit. And he's like, well, I've been to Afghanistan. I spent a lot of time in Afghanistan. I got like 3 rotations there. And I'm thinking, hey, dude, this was like in 2001, And I'm thinking, oh, well, you got your ass kicked. I didn't say that. I'm like,
Sure.
Okay. But I wish I could talk to that guy again. I really do. I really wish I could sit down with that guy again and really talk to him. Because that guy put in his time there, and he had a chip on his shoulder, the same as I would have a chip on my shoulder in his shoes. I wish we could sit down and talk to each other again and like really, have a connection. It's like, what did you see there? Because he saw things I didn't, and there's no way he could communicate that to me because I hadn't seen him yet.
Yeah.
It's just, it's crazy how life comes full circle like that. Because I think that guy and I probably have a lot in common, especially more now than then, for sure.
Yeah.
Because back then that guy was hard and I was not. I was a little piss ant E5 all full of piss and vinegar. thinking I was the bomb. I was not. Let me tell you that. Still not,
Yeah.
but not as bad as then.
Oh, that guy probably that guy saw things that you didn't. That guy saw things that I didn't. But that guy saw things that we did. All right,
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
guarantee you, I guarantee he saw some of the exact same things that that we saw. 10 years, 12 years later. Um,
The interesting thing, Josh, is when we met, it was before 9/11.
oh wow, yeah,
Yeah. It was before 9/11. It was a couple months before. So, but I thought about that guy over the years. I thought about him, especially when I was in Afghanistan. I was like, well, here I am now, bitch. You know?
yep. And
Yeah.
he's sitting there thinking the same thing. He's like,
Yeah, there you are now, bitch.
that yeah, exactly. He's like, how you like them apples? Right there. He's Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting when he gets
But you gotta
their number.
but you gotta, that's what triggered the thought was when you said we're trying to make that back then, we're trying to make that the Soviets Vietnam. And if you're a forward thinker, if you're a thinker, if you're a Russian dude, you know, you're you're witnessing the US and you witness that humiliating pullout that we executed. You're like,
Yeah.
you got yours. You
Yeah.
got yours. That came full circle, didn't it?
Yeah. Came full circle. And you know what? And the Russian withdrawal, when the last T-62 drove across Friendship Bridge, it wasn't, I mean, obviously, they got their ass handed to them. But they didn't, their withdrawal was not as chaotic as ours.
No, there weren't there
Ours
weren't
was,
Afghans falling off that last T-72 tank. There weren't
no,
Afghans falling off
stuck in
that.
the wheel wells. Yeah. Stuck in the wheel wells of a Hind. I mean, it was bad. It was bad, right? And it was like, we're not going to have a U.S. embassy. We're not going to have a last plane out of Saigon moment. Helicopters on the roofs of the embassies. It was like, no, we're just going to have C-17s with people clinging to the outside of them, which is even worse.
But you remember, I mean, scarred me. You remember the news footage. There were Chinooks
Yeah,
taken off
landed
from
on
the
top of U.S. embassy.
embassy with nose down, like boom. And it's like,
Yeah,
man, this is
hauling. Yeah, it's wild, man. So I'm gonna give a couple of shout outs and I'm gonna turn it over to you and you're gonna close us out.
you bet.
Um, so yeah, a couple of shout outs, John, up in DC, Jason out in Mississippi. We got some listeners in Texas that I wasn't aware of. Thanks for listening. Derek out in Hawaii. Thanks for listening. A couple of new listeners out in Hawaii. Mike, thanks for listening. And putting up with us. Uh, so Fred, thanks for listening. We need to get him on as well pretty soon. And for all our Florida peeps, you guys stay safe. You're not going to hear this before until it's over, but you guys stay safe in the hurricane. You know, and don't be don't be crazy because even as a native Floridian, Cat 1, 2, or 3, man, we're having a party. Cat 4, you really need to think about it. Cat 5, you need to pack up and leave. So this is coming in as a Cat 4. It's coming right into the Big Bend where I grew up, right across top of Tallahassee, and so you guys stay safe. And yeah, that's it. I'll turn it over to Luke. He can close us out.
You bet. You know what? Darren doesn't get any more shout outs. That guy got enough shout outs for the next 8 episodes, dude. So hopefully we can get him on. And, Jed, thanks for showing up that night. I know it was a lot of fun. Can't wait. We need to get Jed on too, so he can drop some climate change knowledge on us, because apparently he's on the level with that. Russell, we've got you. We're recording right now. Hey, big game. I guess all it takes for you to buy a few books is for us to go a month without having an episode, right? So, hey, big game. We appreciate you, man. I think about you a lot, and I appreciate you listening. Still feel close, man. We pick up right where we left off. Rodney, thanks for listening. Michael P. And hey, Gary's down there in Florida. He's been sending me pictures and stuff. Is keep the faith, man. Gary and I have been feeling a lot of the same pain lately, and I appreciate you appreciate everything you do, Gary. I really, really do. And I can't wait to catch up with you face to face someday. For everybody else, we forget. It doesn't mean we don't care. One of these days we'll do a C3, get together, straight at the Hofbrauhaus in Las Vegas, and it'll be great. No, wouldn't that be fun though, man? Just to have, hey, we're gonna get together wherever, and just whoever can make it can make it. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, Joe's down in Florida too, and Darren, our other Darren, they're all down there. So they're far. They're on the east. They're on the Atlantic coast. So hopefully they're not catching too much of the brunt of this thing.
Yeah.
But you guys stay safe, man.
And all the Ryans that listen, appreciate y'all.
All the Ryans.
Well, it's a good one, man. It's good to be back. Next time, hopefully next week, Roger will be back. But until then, keep Canteen cups full and tightly secured.